Hi.
Hello.
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 It's back.
We're back.
Both of us.
I'm not going to be a regular feature, I don't think, but just for the time being.
Just while it's convenient and I am lonely, you are here.
How does it feel? Anyway. Oh.
Another evening with. We're back
Another
this
afternoon.
evening to be your company. Because apparently you like listening to us, I guess. Yay.
So, what are we going to talk about today, Matthew?
Our favourite biscuits.
What is your favourite biscuit?
A rich tea finger.
That's barely a biscuit.
Alright, what's yours?
The king of biscuits. The custard cream. Clearly.
Alright. You are wrong, but alright.
Chocolate digester is pretty good as well, but the custard cream, king of biscuits. Especially ones bought from Morrison's, and as you know, we're not getting sponsored by Morrison's, but
Other shops are available.
they are the best ones. They're like value custard creams, are so good.
You sure they don't just come out of exactly the same shop? Or
I
the
don't
same, not shop.
I don't care. I
Biscuit
think
factory.
they're the best. When you open a fresh packet, right, the custard inside is so like wholesome. It's a wholesome biscuit. You munch it, and like the texture inside is good. It's better than any other that I have had. I will say, right, and this is no diss to Lidl, but Lidl's custard creams are the worst ones I've had. They're just too wheaty.
Wheaty. I mean, I will say I'm already disloyal to my own favourite biscuit because I have a horribly noisy plastic package full of malted milks.
Malted milks
So,
are pretty banging as well.
There you go. Maybe I need to change my answer. Or maybe I just like more than one biscuit.
Nope.
Maybe I'm not allowed to do that.
No, you're not.
On to our main topic.
Yes. What is the actual topic then?
You have something that you'd like to talk about today, don't you? Because
yes,
I asked,
I do.
and you actually came up with an answer this time, so that's good.
Rude. I came up with an answer last time as well. Anyway, before we get into this, I wanted to talk about what do you do when your character has reached their goal. Like, a lot of people kind of develop a goal, right, quite early in their game, and then they work towards that goal, and then when they achieve that goal, then what?
What's next? What comes after the achievement?
Yeah.
Or what? Or is it more how do you have multiple achievements, or how do you keep a character alive and interesting? I guess these are all facets of the same question.
So, like, the classic example, the example that springs to mind right now is Sammy with Bull.
Yep.
Like, he decided, like, within his second event, pretty much, that he wanted to fund a sinecure himself. And, yeah, to be fair, he got help, which was really cool. A lot of people stepped up to the plate and give him a boost. But he's already achieved that, and he was expecting that to take about 2 years. And it's taken him a year, roughly.
Yeah.
From, like, putting it out to the nation that that's what he wanted to do.
Yeah, to actually
having it, it's been about a year. So, yeah. Pretty cool. Yeah. But now he's sat there going,
what next?
I've done that now. now what?
So what would your advice to him be?
I don't know, because I'm almost in the same position. So...
Well, I think one of the interesting points is... Obviously that part of the game is where Bull is playing. So, should he now find another bit of the game to get involved in? Is it worth Bull having a change of career to keep things interesting? So there's something new to strive for. Does he need to stay and continue his legacy and carry on and build it up and keep growing it? Does he need to construct more sinecures or a great work, or
is there some other kind of building project that he could lean towards?
Or does he need to make his sinecure something that feels real in the game?
I think that's quite like a low bar thing to do.
I'm not sure, because a lot of people who have, and I, just talking from my own experience, obviously this isn't going to be true for everyone, but a lot of people that have sinecures, they only really exist in the background, in their character background, in the world that they live in. They don't really affect... I mean, White Lake is a bit different because there have been some plot points there. But sinecures don't really hit the field. So Sammy could in effect have his pit fighting school, or whoever gets it, have the pit fighting school, and it just gives them resources, and that's all it does.
Yeah.
But there are lots of interesting things he could do to make it feel real. And I think that would be a first starting point as to... But I think it is very easy, once you've achieved something, or once you've achieved the goal that you set out to have, it's kind of very easy to say, oh, what's next? What's the next thing to do? When actually, achieving it is only half the goal. Once you get once you win an election, or you win a position, or you build something, surely it's then your... duty is the wrong word, but surely it's then your responsibility to sort of follow that through and add to it and keep it going and get more people interested in it.
Okay, so I kind of feel like fundamentally we're maybe talking about two different things here already.
Okay.
So, like, I think it's quite easy to make a sinecure feel real, right? And, like, things that I've got planned for White Lake, I'd still like to run a player event that is the Orcs going to White Lake, as it states in the brief. But, like, you can run a player event in your sinecure like Rafnar does, which is pretty fucking cool, if you ask me. I think it's quite easy to make places in-game that don't have, like, necessarily a physical representation feel real, like, just by talking about them. But, like, if you get a position, that's inherently different, because you suddenly do actually have responsibilities that you need to follow through for. It's not really enough to just get the position. You have to actually do the job as well.
But I would say there is a job that comes with having a sinecure.
If, for example, you turn around and say, I only want to be senator for 2 years, or, whatever, what do you do after that? What do you do after your tenure if you achieve that? If you set out, I want to be senator, or I want to be imperial consul, for example, you've now achieved that. Yeah. You've done the job for a year. Yeah?
A year and a bit.
So now what? What else do you... when that... Because you've spoken about making new characters already. Like...
Well, I think that's sort of one of... And I guess the trouble is, it kind of is... There's a lot of points to this question. And I think we are going to be flitting through them and background to them.
Would you like to pause the video and make a plan?
No.
Discussion plan.
No, because I think what comes up naturally is better. So, if I was to now, say it was summer and I got unelected, someone else got elected, what would my next goal be? So I've been very focused on a particular bit of the game, and I think that's how a lot of people play, is they've got one part of the game that they look in. So my next option would be, well, I pick another bit of the game to get involved in. So I could become a proper priest. I could go and preach and do synod judgments, and I could work towards mandates, and I could go around and canvass for things that I wanted to happen. Or I could become a proper mage, and I could go to conclave regularly, and I could get involved in the orders, and I could do all those.
Do that to yourself.
All those sort of bits of the game, but
I guess because Empire's so huge, like there's no sort of end to what you could potentially do.
Yeah, possibilities are endless. I think what I found as foul is I've dipped my toes in pretty much every aspect of the game. So I am a mage and I am a priest, but sort of.
You've never really been to conclave properly.
No, but I've got magician and I'm a ritual mage.
Yeah.
And I've got a congregation and I raise judgments and I'm involved in the synod game. So I've had like an overview of all of them. Now, originally I didn't want Fowl to be involved in the synod game at all. I didn't want to become a preacher because I wanted to leave that for another character. I wanted to leave part of the game for a new me to get involved in. Now, because I've been, because I'm now a character that's a couple of years old, it sort of just naturally happened that he has found his way into that area of the game. And I didn't want to stop it, so I sort of had to almost sacrifice a character idea for the future to carry on Fowl's story.
I think the thing is, though, like, you think about these character ideas and you base them off of what's interesting you at the time. So it's quite natural. I think with Empire, like, we've spoken about how your characters are so much more longer lived than other games.
Yeah.
Like, Empire kind of opened my eyes to the fact that, well, you don't actually have to kill off a character. If you're not enjoying them, then you can retire them and they'll live forever. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things, isn't it? If an orc is retired, it doesn't mean they just fade into obscurity. It just means they're now going to outlive the length of the game.
I think... Okay, so a better way of putting it, I think, because it just occurred to me, is that a lot of other games, a lot of lesser games, shall we say...
Smaller games?
No, I mean, like, less interesting games, rely on character death to get drama.
Okay.
I think they do, anyway. Maybe that's a little bit harsh, but like after going to Hades and the Forest and Empire, realizing that the world is so like intrinsically interesting that your character doesn't necessarily need to die to make it interesting or to keep your interest. The game's kind of more it morphs into being, so your character's opinion, my character's opinions certainly change in most games that I'm in. And I think that's okay. But a lot of people are like, no, this is what I made the character for. This is what I will do until they die. Which I'm not quite sure I could deal with that.
I think it is good to get, like you say, do the things that interest you at the time.
Yeah.
If that happens to be another bit of the game, don't wait for another character. Just do it.
There's not really any reason for your character to not be interested in those things.
Yeah.
Bear in mind that we're all paying to be there out of character, so, you know, don't, like, force yourself to stick with a piece of game that does not necessarily apply anymore, I suppose. But then, like, wheeling that back round to the, what do you do once you've achieved your goals? Like, is it okay to shift the goalposts? I guess, it has to be, doesn't it?
Definitely.
Because otherwise I'd be a hypocrite.
I think you need more goals to reach for.
Mm.
And if you feel like you've if you feel like you've reached the goal and maybe there's not anything else you'd be interested to do, I think you've also got to remember to not be... I think you can't be scared of starting a new character. I think one of the... yes, it's good to have more ambitions, and it's good to keep your character going and get involved in new bits of game, but as well as that...
Well, not that there's anything wrong with, like, taking up a different part of the game by starting a new character. I've kind of had personally, I've had my eyes open that that's not a necessity.
Yes.
Yeah. But there's nothing wrong with it either. At all.
No, of course not. It's all entirely what is going to make your game fun.
Yeah.
That's the whole point of it, isn't it, really?
Oh.
Having fun.
In this game, what we play.
Yeah.
Yeah. We were talking about some really interesting stuff before we started this video, and now I kind of feel like we've lost the mojo.
No, well, one of the things I've mentioned when we sort of were trying to work out what we were going to say was, there's so much game out there that's just national. And as much as I would never want to leave the Orc Nation, there is a lot more stuff going on. And you could, in effect, play exactly the same character in every nation, and they would be entirely different.
Yeah.
Because your goals, the goalposts for what your nation wants are entirely different. So if you feel like you've done everything you can with your character, and you're worried about playing the same game again with another character, because that's the game that you want to do that interests you, then I don't see any reason why you couldn't play the same bit of the game but in a different nation, because you're going to see it from entirely the other point of view. That is a lot of rain.
That was sudden.
All of a sudden.
Cool.
Does that...
Yeah, like, do you feel like you... Is it out there, what you're doing? I don't know if we can talk about it or not. You've been very vague about it.
I think probably not.
Okay.
I think I've got to be careful about.
Cool. Cool. Well, I was going to say, like, if you got what you're going for, what would you do afterwards?
I think the current goal that I'm going for, I would have to retire the character afterwards.
Yeah, I think you might be right.
I mean, there was a point, and I've mentioned it before, after E3, that I was prepared to retire Foul, because what I was doing was just so not fun at that point in time. I really did consider it, and I thought, well, you know, I've got to a point where I've done the goal. I've set out. I've achieved my ambition. Maybe it is just time to do something entirely different.
Yeah, I remember you thinking about that quite a lot, actually. And that's where that's when we come up with the idea for the next banner we wanted to do. However, I don't know what I was about to say. That was like a particularly like I suppose demoralising.
It was a very difficult event.
That was when we were giving up Scarsing, wasn't it? Oh, we were not giving up Scarsing. Oh, was it not? Never mind then. Ignore me.
No, that was an entirely different set of circumstances.
Oh, shut up then. Yeah. Cool.
I'm not sure this
is really going very well.
I think this is one of those open-ended questions, isn't it? There isn't a single answer. There's not really a firm direction, because it is just play the things that you find that are interesting, and if they lead to other things, then they lead to other things. So I've got a question.
Okay.
You've achieved a goal as Raw.
Yeah.
And it's something that you have said you would now not be unhappy if it went to someone else.
Yeah, like...
What do you feel you could do next?
Well, I don't know. This was kind of where this idea for this video came from, wasn't it? Like, I really... Alex gave me the Chain of More, right? As like a sort of way to help me direct what I was going to do with Raw.
Yeah.
Right? And that was really cool. But now I've done what I feel to be a really good job. At last. And now I kind of feel a bit selfish keeping hold of it. So, could be on the cards for it to go to somebody else. I'm not sure if I want that bit in the video. But, now, I genuinely have no idea where I would take Raw from this point onwards. Like, I don't know, I'm not really like a strong... I don't really like... I don't really like what I think is artificial plot, right? Where, like, PD come to you with this thing, and then they're like, this is a thing that you have to solve. Not that they're like that, but I feel quite pressured by that sort of thing, so I've never really, like, out and out gone and chased plot, so to speak.
Yeah.
Just not really me as a person.
Okay.
But now it just kind of means that most of the things that have happened are quite like organic, and I've never really had like this is what I'm focused on. Even with the pilgrimage, like I haven't exactly been, well, not exactly not 100% focused on it, but like it's kind of been the year's been sort of prepped, building up to a thing, and then the thing happens.
Yeah.
And then it starts again, which is cool, and I like that. You know, I kind of got the hang of it now. But like I say, it feels selfish to keep hold of it. So, but I don't know what to do now. Like if I give it away, then what? What am I going to do next? I don't know, because like there's not really like an intrinsic sort of shaman outlet, really.
Well, I was saying
for orcs.
I was saying this earlier, was that orcs have preachers and shamans. Preach and shaman. We have a lot of preachers that are preaching, that are telling stories of worth or of paragons and exemplars. They're going around and they're being proactive in their pastoral care. Now we've got this other kind of preacher called a shaman that is the same but entirely different. You have an entirely different focus of what you would be advising or for want of a better word, preaching about.
I mean, shaman are borderline heresy. Aren't really?
Like every one of the Empire's nations has some sort of slightly borderline. This is an interesting practice. Are we sure it's virtuous? Are we not sure? It's a national thing. Let's just overlook it.
Yeah.
And for the orcs, that would be.
I think that's definitely shaman. Like, easy, because I suppose like the brief for shaman lines you up to be a priest really well, but I don't know if that's really something that Raw would engage in, because obviously we've got quite a lot of very, very outspoken priests who are very much the way is the only way, like.
But that sets up interesting internal conflicts, doesn't it? In that you've got the way priests and you've got ancestor priests. Which one is more applicable, or are they mutually exclusive, or do they work together?
Yeah. It's hard, but I don't know where or how I can interact with that, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't know how to input into that as my current character. Because obviously my next character was intended to be a preacher, like a way preacher. Because Imperial Orcs plus the way is really cool. And the fact that it kind of doesn't really fit us, really, and we're kind of forcing it, almost. I think that's a really interesting thing to like, fuck off. Bastard. He was coming for my biscuits. I can't be having that. Yeah, so that's...
Is it something where you would be...
What do I do, Matt? What am I supposed to do now?
I guess. Do you weigh up this interesting new character against your current character? Which one do you think you will have more fun as?
You see, currently...
And is that a question you want to even consider?
Honestly, no. Not right now. Like, I've spoken about it before. Like, there was definitely a point in time when I was not enjoying playing Raw, and I thought maybe I should just throw in bin.
Yeah.
But then, like, I kind of grew out of that, and found a niche almost. But now that niche is kind of technically fulfilled, like, I'm at a bit of a loose end. I don't really want to sacrifice my character, because 4 years of playing a character, she's gotten quite in depth, and like there's things going on, and I really like social roleplay, like not necessarily like going out drinking, but just like discussing things and talking through things, and not necessarily like combat oriented, but like the relationships you grow with other characters. Like Raw and Grud's interesting friendship. I think that's really... I would be sad to give that up, going to a different character.
Yeah. And
like missing the opportunity to maim my egregore one more time. And like I'd be sad to like walk away from like Raw's go with friendship.
Raw's friendship with Usko.
That's sort of only just started to grow. Like, I would be sad about that. And like, Raw and Morn are getting quite close, friendly. Like, I'd be sad to bin all of that off.
Yeah.
I'd be sad to choose to bin that off. I think if it happened, like, I die on a battlefield, you kind of got no choice but to roll with it. yeah, it's sad, but get over it.
Mm.
But if, like, yeah, retiring your character's a bit different. That's what I would be sad. So that's the main thing that would hold me back from making a new character.
Mm.
So do I now chase up those character goals for that other character as my current character? Because if I died next week, then I'd be a bit stuffed. And I'd have to, like, figure out a whole new character concept.
That's the thing, I guess. Do you want to save that part of the game? Like I said previously, do you want to save that for a new character?
Yeah.
Arguably, yes. But is that going to interest you in potentially 2 years' time, after playing Raw for another 2 years? Then?
It's a good question. I know it's a question I can't really answer. But I guess... I don't know if I've already said this or not. We've kind of talked in circles a lot, which is okay. But, like, would I... I don't know how I would chase that on Raw. Because I don't think it's necessarily something that Raw would find interesting. Not... That's, like, maybe the most brutal way to put it. But, like, it's not sort of a focus for her. She's got bigger things to be thinking about than whether or not the way fits Imperial Orgs.
Then I guess that's kind of answered the question, hasn't it?
No.
No?
I do not feel any the wiser at all.
Does it? Do you think this has helped? Do you think this has been...
No.
No.
I don't.
But then do you think anything would? Because it's not... The thing is, it's one of those things where you don't really... Until your character's almost just taken from you in a battle, you can kind of muse on these things forever.
Yeah, I guess you can, really.
Interesting. I mean, I don't feel any more enlightened. But
it's just a point of discussion.
It is.
I guess.
And, you know, not every discussion needs an outcome or an answer at the end.
No. I just found it interesting because you've effectively, like, lived through, or Fal's lived through what I'm on the precipice of facing. But, like, now I'm...
I think I
think it's harder.
I've been fortunate enough that the goals I have wanted have also coincided, relatively speaking, with titles that exist in the game. So I've had a physical... This is the mechanical thing that you get from your goal.
Yeah.
So I've had that to reach for. But when you're trying to make your own, or you're trying to make something new, I think that is a lot harder. Because you're reaching for things that aren't necessarily there, and that might not have any foundation in the game before.
You've got a message.
I do have a message.
Yes, you're kind of right there. And I think Sammy's kind of... You know...
I think because Sammy has almost created his whole entire game from the ground up, from the brief, but he's taken a bit of the game that... He's taken something and just run with it, and there's none of that mechanical benefit behind it. I think that's possibly what he's struggling with. Obviously, I don't want to talk for him, but I think that can be a struggle, is if you've tried to make your own goals, and then... I mean, again, it's something I can't really talk about, but the circumstance that made me consider retiring Fal came about because it was a goal that, out of character, I knew was impossible and would never happen, but it was something that Fal really wanted to happen, and in character there wasn't anything that would have stopped it if we'd all agreed. But because it's something that the game didn't support, and it was me pushing that boundary, I knew it wouldn't work. But that doesn't mean that Fowl did. So I was in a weird position where I was aiming for things that I knew I wouldn't be able to achieve, but they're not things that Fowl would just ignore.
Yeah.
And that was really hard. But it was also become a defining moment in my character's story. And it's now become that moment that's kind of made me grow into new things because of.
So here's an interesting concept for you. In LARP, right, so I don't know of any other hobby where this would apply, but in LARP, you have, obviously we experience things, and like, something that is fun out of character is not necessarily something that is fun I see, right?
Yeah.
Like, I look back on, like, some of the things that have happened to my character and go, that was really good. But, like, obviously, it's fucking traumatised raw. You know, like, No Return, you think about that event.
What actually happened there.
And what actually happened is horrific. So many people died, and, like, you know, that was a good... But that was one of our favourite events.
Yeah, it was a really enjoyable event, but it was also awful.
Yeah, and, like, it still comes up as well, like, as being something awful that happened. And, like...
It's that weird sort of... There's that weird distance, isn't there?
Yeah.
Between your feelings and your character's feelings.
Yeah, what you were saying there about, like, you know, your perspective being different to Fowl's perspective. Obviously, out of character, you know that this thing isn't going to work, but you can't just turn around and be like, well, I'm not going to fucking do it then. Because that's not what Fowl knows.
It's not what the character would do.
And it's not, yeah. Like, it's weird, isn't it? Like, to have that sort of outside perspective. I can't remember what it's called. There's a special name for it in cinematography, where the audience know things that the characters don't, and you're like kind of helpless to just watch it unfold. If you know, tell us. This is going to really bug me from now on.
That's an interesting... is analogy the right word? Maybe not. That you are, in effect, watching your character on a cinema screen.
I've often referred to LARP as being the main character in a film. Right? From, like, no matter what perspective you are, because you're playing your character, you are the main character in that story. From your perspective.
Yeah. Just like I suppose you are in life. Except in life,
you're not an
you
audience
don't have...
to your own life. But you are, like, in an audience perspective
of your character.
God, that's some weird meta shit right there. Next time on An Evening with Matt and Andy get stratospherically high and discuss.
Time to have an existential crisis.
It is an interesting topic. I think it's very interesting. But then again, I'm a nerd, so I would.
So I think that's probably a good place to
I think we need
down.
to sort of, like, seriously consider whether this film actually goes up online. But yes.
So I think we're going to have a review. If you're obviously watching this, then we figured out it was worth public consumption. comment below what you think. If you've got any thoughts to add to our small discussion, maybe we'll have a redo, and we'll, with some other people's perspectives, we'll sort of rethink what we're talking about, because I like the idea that we're starting conversation.
Yeah.
And maybe 5 minutes has been useful points that people haven't thought about before.
I'd also
if you can sift through them.
I'd be really interested if other people have had this whole experience. It can't just be us. So yeah, let us know. Did you decide to retire your character? Did you kill off your character? Did you find yourself a new thing to do? I'd be really interested. I'd also be interested, just as an aside, as to what people think Raw should do now. I'd also like to put like a little disclaimer just in case this does go out. This is purely what I am thinking, not necessarily what I'm going to do.
Yes.
Don't
worry.
metagame police will get you.
Yeah.
You know who I'm talking to. See you later.
See you later. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Can we rewatch that back?
Yeah.